Hi, I'm David with EV World News. We talk about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. It's Wednesday, which means I'm back in studio today with Mike Herzog, our resident engineer. How's it going today, Mike?
Doing great, David. I like that intro, the resident engineer. So it's people can tune in or tune out. Like it's going to get technical today. We'll get there.
It might. You just never know. I always love it though when people, when I get some of the comments on the videos, and it's like you realize he actually, cities and countries reach out to him for advice on how to make their grid work. Okay, it's not like he's just some guy I pulled off the street. And
I,
then
I always
Bill.
I always try I always try to couch it because like anything you say, somebody can point back to, oh well, what about this one case or one time? And it's I try not to speak in the absolutes, but like for the
Yeah.
most part, this is the way stuff is.
And I kind of laugh because we get so many people kind of like make fun of Bill. And like we were talking about earlier, I mean, Bill's definitely been ahead of his time in this space. I mean,
Mhm.
he's been in this space for 30 some odd years. And, even you look back at the GM EV1. Okay. And I see people all the time. We did a GM EV1 episode a week ago, and people were like, oh, they screwed up. They could have beaten Tesla to the punch and all this. And the problem is when they introduced the EV1, there really weren't, people didn't know what it was.
There wasn't a market for it. It was a spaceship car. It
Yeah.
was a Back to the Future car.
Honestly, if it weren't for Tesla, nobody would really know what an EV was for, or why you might want one. They're the ones who really put that out there in the
Yeah.
space. And if it weren't for that, there'd never be anything.
It'd be a novelty. It would still be a novelty out there. It just, hey, that's something different. Here's something new you could do.
Yeah, but like you're saying, I saw some article talking about how hybrids are the way to go, or the U.S. needs to get bigger on hybrids. And I was reading this article, and it said, the date, and it said Omaha, Nebraska. And I'm like, well, what is this? So I went looking and found the guy on LinkedIn. Turned out some guy lives here in Omaha, and he's friends with Bill. You
Of course,
know,
you're friends with, if you're in the EV
and,
space, yeah, that's you're
yeah,
friends with Bill.
but yeah, everybody's connected to Bill. I couldn't tell you how many times I go looking up the CEO of some company, and they've probably been friends with Bill for like 6, 7 years.
Mm.
When they first started thinking about putting a company together, Bill was the big dog with evworld.com.
Mhm.
And, there just wasn't, there wasn't anybody out there really like Bill. Now there's all kinds of, sites out there like Electric and other ones that provide news. And I've been made into like big commercial enterprises. And this was just a hobby for Bill.
Yeah, yeah. It was a service. This is what he liked to do and put it out there, and it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a rich, great history in all of this and good nature too. He's fun to talk to about it.
Oh, he is. He is, and he gets so excited about some of the topics people bring. Anyways, folks, we'll stop rambling, and we'll get on to some news. So I want to start off today with VinFast. So VinFast, for those of you who don't know, is a Vietnamese car manufacturer that has entered the U.S. market.
Mhm.
They're not subject to all the same, tariff crap that like China is, and their stuff is legitimately made in Vietnam.
Yep.
Now, they're pretty much only selling in California at this point, but they've made arrangements they're going with the dealer model. So they're looking at franchising the dealers, and they've had quite a bit of interest. I haven't seen any.
They don't have a parent auto company, right? They're on their own. I mean, it's their CEO's a tech billionaire, isn't he, or somebody
Yes.
very prominent out there?
Yeah. So they're part of a conglomerate called Vin Group.
Okay.
Okay. And the CEO, what I didn't understand, they went public and somehow they only released 1% ownership of the company into the float. And normally you have to do 30% ownership. So I never quite understood that. But based on what there was worth there for like a day, the CEO was worth more than like GM and Ford and some other things. I mean, it was some silly stuff. And it had something to do with the fact that they just didn't have a whole lot of stock out in the float. But anyways, they've just delivered their first VF9, which is a 3-row electric SUV. Let's see if I can find some decent pictures to share of this vehicle. Not sure yet. I'm going to share my screen.
Okay.
And although I'm still not sure these are the best pictures, but it is a decent looking. You can see
Mhm.
this here. I mean, it kind of looks comparable like to a BMW SUV, I
Yeah,
suppose, in
you
the
know, it's sharp.
styling.
It looks nice.
Let's see. Um, but they had a kickoff party in Los Angeles. The company was founded in 2017 in Vietnam, and they just recently started delivering stuff to the United States. They delivered 8 VF9s, and let's see, it looks like a pretty decent sized vehicle.
Yeah,
They
that's a nice
start
looking
out
car.
at about $70,000, and there's a nicer version that's about $74,000. But if it's a 3-row vehicle, I'm sure that's
Oh, it'll sell. Kind of almost looks like the newer Highlander, newer Volkswagen
yeah.
Atlas. I mean, it's kind of got that
Mhm.
same SUV style to it, more curvy than boxy.
You certainly wouldn't realize this was an EV unless you started noticing that there was no exhaust.
You know,
But
isn't that
even
that's what I always look for. It's like, God, is that you look at the grill and look at the exhaust.
I mean, look at the back of this though.
Yeah.
I mean, you really can't tell if there might be an exhaust under this. You know what I'm saying?
Mm. Yeah,
This
yeah.
really, you cannot tell that this is an EV.
No, that's a sharp looking car. I just saw a Kia EV9 on the road the other
Uh-huh.
day, and it was same thing. It was like, oh, that's a nice looking Kia. Then it's like, oh crap, that's an EV9. Like couldn't tell. You know, it just
Yeah,
looked like, oh, that's their new SUV line, but it was all
it's
electric. It was
sharp. Yeah,
nice.
they're sharp looking. Was it a blue one?
Yeah,
That's the only color I've seen them in so
that's
far.
I've seen it. It's not my favorite color. It's not my favorite color, but that's all I see to see him into.
But they have a unique blue color for that
Yeah.
vehicle,
Yep.
and no other vehicle has that exact. I
Yeah.
haven't noticed any other color with vehicle with that same
It's
exact
standout.
blue. So it seems
Mhm.
like everybody's buying that one because nobody else has that
That's the
same
one. Yeah.
color. And it's probably still less obnoxious than driving around in a stainless steel pickup truck. You know, but let's see. Oh, it has heated seats in the second row, heated steering wheel, um, rear LCD displays, panoramic roof, subwoofers, fog lights, cornering lights. That's kind of nice. That'd be a kind of a nice feature. It's always kind of made me wonder sometimes when you're going around and you're like turning right. It's surprising when you're turning the wheel that sometimes if the headlights wouldn't turn, let's just see what's
What's
coming up
actually
down.
popping up over there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what's coming down the road? Because sometimes you're turning right onto a street that's not well lit. You're not really sure what might be there. And um, anyways, they vary from 290-mile range to 330. Oh, the nicer version only has 40 less, but it's due to larger 21-inch wheels. Let's see. Oh, here's some more pictures. I mean, those are sharp looking.
Yeah, they're good cars. I shouldn't say I don't know if they're good cars, but they look nice and they seem to be doing the right thing.
When I hear they're from Vietnam, it doesn't make me just think super high quality, but that doesn't mean that it's not. You know what I mean?
You
And
know, going back to Kia. They've changed my opinion on Southeast Asia car production and what it is, and that cheap, efficient model. Like yeah, they want to step up. It's still cheap and it's still efficient, but they put some nice quality into it as well over the past few years.
well, to be fair, the Hyundais and Kias from 20 years ago weren't that great.
No, no, no. That's
Okay.
they got a reputation for a reason.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And now, I mean, they're a fairly, competitive. I mean, I think they're a pretty high tier car manufacturer. They still may not be, super competitive with like Audi and Mercedes or
Mhm.
Toyota or something, depending on, what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Um, but I think they're a pretty good choice. I mean, man, every Hyundai SUV, whether it's gas or electric, they all look sharp. I mean, the Kia EV6 is a pretty sharp looking vehicle.
Hmm.
The EV9's sharp looking. But here we'll go back to VinFast. But this VinFast, I mean, you look at that. I mean, is there anything about this tell you it's not just a regular? Now, it doesn't have a regular dash like we're used to. So this is more like a Tesla setup here. But I don't know. I just thought that was kind of cool. Their presence in the United States will grow. We've been waiting. They're the ones that have that VF3 that looks like the Suzuki Samurai used to look. that is selling for $10,000 in Vietnam, and we're expecting it to sell for $20,000 in the US. It's supposed to be coming to the United States, but I haven't heard anything, lately about what's going on with that. So at some point, and maybe they've just never been able to get all their crash safety standards. Maybe that's part. Maybe they
That's
need to
always
ship
that's
some here
always
to
the question
Nebraska.
for me when I look at those cheap vehicles, and we look at and
Hmm.
just the requirements and standards to be able to drive on a highway in the U.S.
Right.
And is that a huge reason why it's like, well, no, we can cut a lot of those corners out and reduce a lot of the costs where it's the baseline, the cost of entry here, it's like, you have to be able to drive on a highway or you're not going to sell it. So we'll see when everything comes back up and what those costs. That's BYD especially. You see that in all those cheap cars, and you wonder like, well, yeah, if you're going 20 to 30 miles an hour on a jam-packed street, it's a big difference than going 50 or 60 down a two-lane highway. So you can get away with a lot more in those.
Oh, let's talk about BYD next. So BYD, Build Your Dreams, 8% owned by Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway here out of Omaha, has it's looking like they're going to topple Ford's global spot this year. Okay, so Ford is currently the sixth largest automaker in the world, and it looks like BYD is about to pass them up. And BYD hasn't been around that long.
No,
um, so they've seen explosive growth in 2024. They sold 500,000 vehicles just in October.
BYD did.
If BYD did, it will be if BYD passes Ford, it'll be the first of the big three automakers on the list to pass up. So the others sell more than Ford does globally. And let's see, they're they're having global expansion. They're going to build production facilities in Thailand, Turkey, Hungary, and Brazil. Now, we've
Ooh.
also heard they were going to be doing more in Mexico.
Uh-huh.
But anyways, their revenue for quarter three 2024 jumped 24% to 28 billion, which was just above Tesla's 25 billion. So there, in terms of profit, Tesla's sort of the big dog with 2.2 billion net profit versus BYD's 1.6 billion. Now think about this. These are both EV manufacturers. You hear all these
Totally.
EV companies say,
Totally.
we
Yep.
can't make profitable EVs, yet you've got a couple of EV only companies that are crushing it.
That are just
Okay.
skyrocketing. Yeah, doing
Yes,
fantastic.
they're crushing it. And while it's not part of our topics today, there's talk that the Republican government next year may try to get rid of the EV tax credits and sales
$7,500.
incentives.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Musk says, hey, Tesla doesn't need it. But Tesla makes money on all their cars. And Ford and GM and everybody and a lot of the others do not. But because of that tax credit, some companies like Hyundai have built facilities in the United States so that their vehicles qualify. So I don't know. There may be some give and take on that. And a big part of that is what state is Hyundai going to make all those cars in?
Yeah.
Georgia, right?
Georgia. Yeah. I was
So,
gonna guess
and
Georgia, Kentucky, Indiana,
yeah,
Ohio,
it's
somewhere
Georgia.
in that area. Yeah.
If I were the governor of Georgia, I'd be down at Mar-a-Lago. It's like, hey, Hyundai is going to stop,
Yeah.
they're
They will move.
investing all this money here, if you do this. So the thing is, I remember seeing a while back that the total amount of tax credits on car sales was about $1 billion for the first half of the year or something like that in the United States. The Hyundai investment in Georgia is like 10 times that.
Yeah. If they're building
Okay.
plane.
Or
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
And
I
that's
mean,
one
it's like,
state. Yeah. One company in one state. Yeah.
yeah, I realize that. I mean, you know, you would you'd have to put the brakes on that idea of of eliminating that
And
when
you
that
and
company
I have
did that.
talked about this plenty, and I think it's just still riding the wave of the election, and I'm going to do all these things. Federal mandates, absolutely, like no question, those are axed and going to be gone out the door. But yeah, walking back the rebate, I don't see, especially when it's well, the premise I heard about it, it's like we want to rebuild American car manufacturing. It's like,
Mhm.
well, Tesla's an American company. They benefit from that. You're creating the jobs here. GM is fully on board with EVs and what they're doing in those brands. Ford is making a good faith effort. That's kind of the wave of the future, and you're not going to dictate the car market anymore. I mean, it's that has flown away. I mean, the sales in China and sales in Europe and where they're going. So it's kind of, we're passengers on this a little bit, not, no pun intended. But stay on board with it. Keep those things going.
Yeah, I just have a hard time seeing that go away because of the amount of job creation and investment that's gone on in Republican governed states. Bill and I were talking about a deal on Tuesday where this massive solar array, or no, I'm sorry, it was a couple of weeks ago. We have a video about to launch about Texas. Okay. And in that, we're talking about the fact that the governor of Texas and other Texas state officials from the Republican Party went, to press releases and stuff about the whole thing, but none of them had supported what helped finance this, in the government. They were all opposed to it. But I think so much of our government.
David, I think you froze up on my end. I don't know if I'm still going live or I got disconnected here. But you're a hard freeze on my end. All right. I just got a note from our producer in the background that I think I'm still live. Oh, there he goes. I see some motion over there.
Yeah. So this is really weird. I've never lost power before.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I have solar. That's the weirdest thing. Yeah, I actually just lost power. My systems restarted, but the big thing was my router restarted.
Oh.
And so when that restarted, that kicked me off there for
everything out?
a little bit. Yeah. Give me a minute so I can get everything. I have to wait for my PC to come back. Okay. Yeah, that just really odd. Yeah, I couldn't tell you the last time I've lost power.
It's a great thing. So I used to do that, reliability analytics for power systems. Mm-hmm. Still do that. And we're fortunate where we're at. We actually have pretty decent service. Most of it, I mean, you can really tie it back to a big storm. I mean, that's the big one for everybody, or a specific, like, well, okay, that car hit a pole, squirrel had a bad day, something really unique.
Right.
Not just general, like, I keep losing power and nobody knows what to do.
My PC just restarted again. I'm not sure what went on there. Yeah, I got something going on today. This is really unusual. It's funny because our editor for the channel lives in India, and where he lives, they generally have power outages for at least a few hours every day. And so where we talk about the possibility of a power outage, it's a regular part of life over in the part of the world that he lives in. And it's really just, it's difficult for us to fathom that is going on. I'm actually wondering if it's the circuit I'm on. It may not be my whole house. I wonder if my circuit is being overtaxed. I don't know.
Too much processing on it. Did you turn the heat on or something? It'd be probably
I don't know. Yeah, I have gas, but I am just confused on what's going on there. And then, of course, every stupid program is trying to restart.
Everything's going at once. Yeah.
Right. Microsoft Teams wants to load up. I don't know why Teams wants to come up on boot. I couldn't tell you the last time I had a Teams meeting. I had this joke. I said, if you really want to have a meeting, you don't want everybody to show up, do a Teams meeting, because there'll be somebody who won't be able to figure out the technology.
I think we're there. I think it's gotten better. Where I struggle, there's Teams, there's WebEx, there's Zoom. Gosh, there's one I'm not thinking of, and it's back and forth. I think I've got all of mine set up for
Oh,
that.
I've done
All my
Google
clients
Meets.
are something different, but
I do some on dial pad.
yeah,
The dial
it's
pad one's actually pretty good.
yeah. We used that just a good old like phone bridge, like everybody call in for a conference call. Like those
Yeah.
were those were great.
Well,
Yeah.
the dial pad one's a video one too.
Oh, it's a video one too. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So it gets um, interesting to see how some of those things hold up. Let me see here. Restore. Get back into StreamYard here in a second, our trusty streaming service. But what I was going on though about the deal with BYD, and I still find it fascinating that Berkshire Hathaway owns 8% of this company. But anyways, and they're subsidized some by the Chinese government. Okay, so you got issues with that. I mean, it's not all totally it's not all totally kosher. I mean, I complain if you ever hear me go into a deep rant about how anti-competitive the Chinese government is. They do stuff with manipulating the currency. There's all kinds of craziness they perform that just doesn't.
Oop, we lost you again. I wonder if he had another click out and his router's resetting, because I think he broadcast from his phone. Did your router just reset again?
I'm not sure what just happened there. I noticed that I froze up. Yeah, sorry, folks. Hopefully things will quiet down here. I have no idea what could be going on because there's nothing unusual going on at my place that should be pulling power other than the fact we had the 40-mile-per-hour winds outside.
You should be okay. Maybe you got a momentary line or a branch bounced on a line or something and gave you a quick short, but
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? That just seems odd because I would think that my system would prioritize giving me power before it ships my solar off to the grid.
mm-hmm.
Because I don't do battery storage. I just have it go right to the grid, no
Right.
PPD. Just gives it back to me at night. But anyways, we'll move on from the BYD story because the next story
Maybe
is
that
about.
BYD story was bad luck.
Yeah, maybe it was, even though it wasn't Omaha. I like to think of BYD as an Omaha company, even if they're not based here, because we got some roots there. But my next topic is GM lays off 1,000 people globally, likely due to expected federal EV funding cuts. So they're preemptively dropping 1,000 employees globally. Most of the cuts are from its global tech center in Warren, Michigan. Now, this decision primarily impacts salaried employees, although some hourly positions might be affected. Their fear is, of course, that the $7,500 tax credit may go away. But the layoffs aren't a tremendous surprise given the global intense competition a company like GM is in right now, according to a car advocacy group.
I mean, the cynical side of me and maybe the realistic side is, well, they were going to make those cuts anyway and just got a new banner.
Just made as an excuse.
Yeah,
right.
An excuse that we had to do this and this was happening. So that's the way I would read into that.
Yeah, I mean, for GM, 1,000 people is probably a blip.
That's not much. Yeah.
I mean, I assume they have several 100,000 employees. I don't know what they have, but worldwide, I'd imagine it's massive numbers.
Got to be huge numbers. So yeah, 1,000 of them. You wonder if this is one of those things blown out of proportion, like an internal email or a public statement. Like, we're concerned about XYZ. We're concerned about the changing administration. We're concerned about ABC, and somebody just picked up on they're cutting people because of the administration. But this was something that was going to happen anyway.
Well, if you're one of the 1,000, it's a big deal, right?
Yeah. I don't want to make light of that at all. It's
no, but I'm just saying, if you're one of those 1,000, it's a big deal.
It's kind of a
right.
Yeah.
So the layoffs were made in order to win this competitive market. a company's spokesman said. It's an unmistakable sign the auto industry is slowing and that consumers are expressing some reluctance about buying higher end or higher priced cars, notably electric cars. And I think they just kind of threw that in there.
Yeah, that's
Um, General Motors has indicated that its EVs are nearing profitability, but the company still incurs losses on every EV sold. In response, GM has slowed its EV product pipeline and paused operations at its Orion assembly plant, a facility crucial to EV production. It's funny. GM has probably one of the best lineups of all companies right now in the EV space. I mean, they have multiple pickup trucks. Um, they have, they have the Hummer. They have several SUVs. There are several
yeah.
things that they've added there. Reza. So one of the guys that we've had on the show before that only sells used EVs, he thinks it's going away. So the talk has been to get rid of the $7,500 credit. The $4,000 one on used, um, so it doesn't directly benefit any of the auto manufacturers, right?
Mhm.
That's one that actually benefits consumers. Okay, so screw consumers. That's not good for votes, I guess. I don't know. Um, I I'd like to see that stick around because I think that's one of the coolest things out there for getting lower income people into electric vehicles. Because if you look at the $7,500 tax credit, you can earn up to 300. Yeah, if you're married, you can earn up to $300,000 and qualify for that
Yeah.
$7,500 tax credit if you buy the right vehicle. Okay. Whereas the 4,000, you can only make half as much. It's 75,000 single, 150,000 married, and you're looking at a $25,000
Yeah, it's
car.
got a cap on the price of the car that you're able to buy
Right.
with it. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's very targeted, very targeted.
And I'd like to see that stick around. I'm all for getting rid of the mandates. I don't like the idea of getting rid of the incentives right now. I think, as Mike and I were discussing earlier, there's some great incentives. And if I were Hyundai, I'd be pissed if they're going to get rid of those incentives. And I'd halt my plans on building facilities in Georgia because
Mhm.
they're building that EV9 facility. And I think it's almost done. I mean, it's too far along to stop at this point. But you look at that, and they did that because they could import the EV9s from Korea. Um, and Yep. Oasis. Yeah, right now that the Chevy Equinox for 28 grand
Yep.
with 319 miles range. Yeah, that's a huge deal right now in terms of where things are going in the market. It'd be nice if they could keep that around at least for a couple of years, maybe, or maybe phase it out, change it to a phase out of some sort. But if they were going to do a phase out, they should really do it on like California did with the state ones. So California changed their state tax credit to be, you really had to be really legitimately low income
Mhm.
to do it. They weren't doing it on $75,000. I think you had to be more like in the $30,000 income
Oh
range
wow,
to
yeah.
qualify for theirs. And yeah, I'm hoping to keep doing the $4,000 one too. I think it's a great way to help the used car market and the used EV market. Although what's odd is it's making every used EV worth $25,000.
Yeah.
It's like magic,
Yeah,
you
it's
know.
it's funny how that works out. Nah,
Yeah,
but
because
look, going back to Oasis, that comment before about the 2025 Equinox, like it's a nice car. And that 28K after rebate, even before um, the rebate, add 7,500 bucks on it. That's not a bad price for a brand new car. A nice looking car, a nice little midsize SUV. Like that's a good deal. I think that's just kind of illustrating the point we talk about a lot of like some of these are really becoming competitive anymore. And in this
right.
narrative you see in so many of these, like that last article, well, it's yeah, they're at a loss, but consumers don't want to pay more, don't want to pay the premium for EVs. Like they're on the trajectory of parity. I mean, they're getting very, very close to it. And all the imports are there already. I mean,
Oh,
they're cheap.
this article, it states that GM employs 163,000 workers
Oh,
worldwide, with 25,000 alone in Southeast Michigan. Oh, um, One of the issues that's coming up with, you know, um, all of the things with the Chinese companies and different things. I was reading some article was talking about, you know, because of the loss of market share overseas, that the Chinese companies could create an extinction level event for the U.S. car industry. And but like you and I are saying, we think they need to keep the tax credits because we know that manufacturing of EVs is getting cheaper and cheaper. GM bought that company that they do the gigacasting with,
Mhm.
right? And so they're looking at how can they get into the ability to build GM cars, EVs cheaper. Because the gigacasting, while there's been similar designs in gas cars in the past, it the complexity of gas cars
It,
versus EVs
what it is,
doesn't lend itself well to it.
it's belts, it's fluids, it's all kinds of moving parts and gears. Or an EV, it lends itself to be very modular, very deep. It's a Lego set. Put them together, get it in there, replace your batteries, keep your batteries in one spot. It's much more modular than a transmission, a traditional transmission with all that set up in there.
All right, here's a random odd fact for today. So Oregon surpasses 100,000 registered EVs, making it one of the top EV states. And the reason I thought this was interesting was because here in Omaha, we only recently passed 5,000
Mm-hmm.
EVs for the Omaha market, and the Omaha Metro is approximately 50% of the state of Nebraska, but I would bet you adoption in the rest of the state of Nebraska isn't even half of what it is here. So if
It's
there was
very
5,000 in Omaha,
close. Yeah.
there might be 2,000 more in the rest of the state.
I was going to say 2,000, 2,500 if I'm feeling optimistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Lincoln might have a bunch.
I bet Lincoln's doing okay. I bet Lincoln's doing okay, but part of it, I mean, our state's big. So when you get into some of those other communities, I mean, there's like you need miles. I mean, you need places to go.
There's a lot of parts of Nebraska that you really need one of those pickup trucks that has the extra fuel tank in the bed.
Yeah, it's one of those.
Yeah.
This is the part of the country where people actually need the toolies. They need the giant pickups because they're hauling horse trailers. They're doing things like that's
Right.
where
Yeah,
that's
I mean, it is a little different. You don't see the same vehicles rolling around here that you'd see in New York City. That's for sure. I lived for a year in the DC metro, and I was really shocked that I never saw pickup trucks there.
Mhm.
And I mean, because I had moved there from Memphis, Tennessee, and which it's kind of like Texas. You have a huge amount of full size pickup trucks, but didn't see them at all there. In fact, there was plenty of SUVs in that market, but it
Mhm.
was really there was way more cars. It was really interesting to see how many people still drove
Just
cars in the
good
market.
old sedan. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, versus everybody driving an SUV or a pickup truck. So that was it was quite a noticeable
Hmm.
difference. But you have issues there where parking spaces are probably smaller, getting
Small
around is more
traffic.
of a challenge. Gas mileage is probably important because you're probably sitting in traffic for hours every
Mhm.
day. um, I shouldn't say hours, but you're sitting in traffic
Yeah, you're
uh,
stopped.
for guaranteed. And so having a vehicle that's not burning a whole lot of gas was definitely an advantage in that market. So it's just different to see how going from state to state, you see different needs. I mean, I've seen a fair number of F-150 Lightnings here,
Mhm.
and so
They pop
it's
up. Yeah.
just, and you can't tell they're one until you get right up on it. You see the word lightning, or you happen to notice where the charging port's at. I
Mhm.
mean, you really can't tell that they're not just a regular F-150,
Yep.
and that's one nice thing about the Ford product. The Mach E from the back is confusing because it looks like a Ford Mustang, but it's obvious it's an SUV,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And so, it's got a distinctive look. You can tell when you're near a Mach E because it's a distinctive looking
It's a
Ford.
unique car. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyways, I just thought that was kind of cool about Oregon hitting 100,000. It's like
Yeah,
we're probably 10 years from that here in
we're a long way.
Nebraska.
We're a long
But
way.
also we don't have the population Oregon has either. So that's a big difference too. Um, let's see. I had an article from about Amazon invest 300 million pounds to decarbonize UK transport. And the highlight of this, I'm going to share my screen. It's showing some of the vehicles here. The highlight is these wheels, these rims on these vehicles. That's pretty cool. I would go around tootling delivered packages wanting just to drive around a vehicle with those rims. That's nice. I like that. That's probably on an EV. That's probably some of the sharpest looking wheels and rims I've seen. I thought
I'd call that a Mr. Bean car. Maybe that
yes,
ages me a little bit, but one of those tiny old little British three wheelers. That's what it reminds me of.
but these have four.
I know,
These have four.
it's got
They're
four, but it's just that so foreign even back 20, 30 years ago, where it's God, what a tiny little vehicle, but very, very common over there.
right here and right here. It looks like they've jammed in a desktop PC. Just tried to jam it above the wheel.
I mean, to me, that looks like somebody took a golf cart and put a cover on the back and taped a PC to the dashboard. But if it works, it works. Good for them.
Oh, stop sharing that. I don't know. I did something to my. I've destroyed my ability to view this. Let me see if I can refresh that. Oh God, yeah. Just all right. Anyway, I just thought it was kind of.
I like those little cars. That's great.
Yeah, I mean it's nice looking. It's kind of cool to see some of these different micro mobility type vehicles that people are using for delivery and things like that. I mean, one of our big problems in the United States is what is the most common number of people that are in a car that's going down the road?
Sure, it's one.
It's one. It's one. Yet, people will be in a Suburban or an F-150, and it's just one person in the vehicle tootling down the road. And so when you have these vehicles that are more specialized for, you only have one person in these delivery vehicles, and the rest of it's just packages, right?
Yeah.
And it makes a lot more sense. You don't need
a lot of sense. It really makes a lot. I mean, if it works and you're traveling city streets and over there they don't get the weather we get. They don't get the snow. They don't get the cold. They don't have to put on big snow tires on those things.
but if they get the rain
all year long,
they can get the dreary weather.
they get dreary. Yeah. Just put like a golf cart. Put the little plastic sheets on the side to keep them dry, and they'll be okay.
Oh, Pakistan is 10% solar. I guess that really wouldn't surprise me, Reza. Here in the United States, we're 20% renewables. But that's the combination of wind, solar, and hydroelectric. Let me see. What is it? We're 60% LNG, 20%. Wait, no, we're 40% LNG, 20% coal, 20% nuclear, and about 20% solar, wind, and hydro. We really don't have a lot of hydro. I don't even think we're 1% of the whole country is hydro here. Whereas
it's very limited, very limited.
Yeah.
Mainly Pacific Northwest is where we see a lot of it. Some New York, some in upstate New York, some along the Missouri River, but it's very limited.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's some countries that are 99% hydroelectric. The United States is like 1%.
Well, but Canada. I mean, that's the name of their biggest power companies are like British Columbia Hydro, Manitoba Hydro. I mean, that's where a lot of their energy comes from.
I know when I was trying to consult for companies doing crypto mining, that the cheapest place you could get electricity in North America at the time was Quebec. It was like 3.5 cents a kilowatt
or
kilowatt hour. Yeah. And they were encouraging data centers to come in there because you had a couple of benefits. One, you had cheap electricity. Number two, it was cold.
Yeah. So you had natural cooling.
Yeah. You had some natural cooling there. Didn't have incredibly hot summers. I mean, there's a lot of these data centers that are out in the middle of nowhere in Texas, out in the heat. So you have to pay to cool those things off too. The more unique thing was the idea of possibly putting a data center in some salt mines in Missouri. And that way you'd be underground where the temperature is normally like 60 degrees or something like that, or 56 or something like that consistently. And so it would help a lot with the, the cooling aspect as well.
Anyways, that's one of their major loads at those. It's just AC. It's constantly cooling that machinery because it runs so hot.
All right, let's see. I've got this article from Bloomberg. California boosts EV charging sector at the expense of biofuels. So somehow EV charging is doing something to replace biofuels, which that's kind of fascinating because there's a lot of people that are looking into a lot of different ways to create biofuels. Biofuels are a lot of times taking everything from trash, from wood. It's sort of a recycling measure of using resources that would otherwise go to waste and converting them into fuel. Now, that's at the top end. At the other end of those biofuels, they're strategically acquiring wood, specialized forestry, just for that particular sector that they're extracting fuel somehow from the carbon from the wood itself. But the the California Resource Board approved an update to the state's low carbon fuel standard will make it more difficult for biofuel producers to generate regulatory credits going forward. EV charging will become the program's leading benefactor by the end of the decade. I find that I don't know what to think about that. California, a lot of times, is way ahead of the rest of the country, and certain, things are obviously way ahead in EV adoption. Um, we also hear a lot of criticism. It's like, well, everybody adopt EVs, but don't charge them because we don't have enough power. And but there's more than one thing going on there, right? They're also having data centers, and their population keeps going up. So there's
Yeah,
more
yeah.
people to supply power to, and so and they just can't quite keep up. But
I know biofuel like ethanol. I mean, ethanol
Mhm.
gets anymore, you get so many knocks against it just because what it takes to actually produce corn, in those
Yeah.
spaces. You do kind of the full energy cycle of that process and what it means. What are we actually getting out of this? And it's when it's no longer become like you started with a offshoot, like this was going to be wasted anyway. Like this was going into the landfill. This was leftover feedstock, whatever it was from corn, let's convert it. But when you actually start converting, fields and production directly into ethanol, I think that's probably the challenge they're going against. Where when you look at the full life cycle energy cost, is it well, yeah, no, EVs are better. Like it's better to do it that way. That's a better use for our energy and our energy resources.
So this program provides 500 million to 1.4 billion to the charging sector per year based on carbon credits, based on the prices of today's carbon credits. This will be funded by fossil fuel suppliers whose product emissions exceed legislators' emission targets. These funds end up flowing to companies like EVgo and Tesla. Commercial vehicle infrastructure providers such as Watt EV, Terawatt, and Prologis also get a boost. Grid operators and automakers can take a share of funds, but biofuel producers, including Phillips 66 and Marathon Petroleum, will see their funds reduced, potentially hampering the viability of certain projects. States and countries around the world will be taking note of the updates, as many have already or are planning to introduce similar programs. So, one of the things is credit prices fell. Okay, so LCFS, which has something to do with California, credit prices fell from $187.21 to $66 lately, and credits in Germany's program have been trading for less than $100, and they had been as high as $400. And their reasoning is excessive biofuel credits have been blamed for this. So many people have really gone to bat with producing biofuels to reduce emissions. Now they're kind of getting punished because there's been an excess of this.
Well, and it's one of those I wouldn't even call that a loophole. I'm sure that was one of the original intentions of you're not using just plain old gasoline anymore, diesel. You're blending it. You're creating some other fuel source, and people jumped on that. I mean, that's one way around it. You regulate. You redirect and say, well, we're going to close the way this process works, and we're going to ship those funds to EVs. So, that's regulation in action right there.
Well, I've looked at various biofuels projects, and they can make money without credits, but they make a lot more money with the credits. I mean, we're talking the profits go up by a factor of 6 to 7x.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a huge difference because it's like, okay, we've got a product here. We make a 10% margin on it when we make it, so 90% is cost, 10% is profit. But when we add the tax credits on top, we go to now, instead of getting 100%, we're now getting 160%. So we got the original 10% plus this other
Yeah.
60%,
Yeah.
and the
All
other 60% is
profit.
all profit. Yeah. So it really, though, pays back the investors for putting the money up to
Mhm.
develop these technologies. And a lot of stuff, it's like the argument with drugs. Um, you have a certain amount of money that gets sunk into R&D, and once that's spent, the drug company has to recover that research and development money. They have to make profit on that, but sometimes that leads to the fact that the drug company can kind of sell the product for whatever they want, whatever's the most they think they
Mhm.
can get for something. It's like, well, you don't want to die. Here, we'll just charge you 10,000 a month for this product, or
Yeah.
we'll bill it to your insurance. It'll be convenient.
True. Sure. Yeah. It's completely different topic. I don't want to get into it too much, but I mean, they invented it. They have a patent on it. I mean, that's the way some of it's supposed to work. But on the same hand, if it's life saving, like somebody can step in and like take your money. We'll pay you for this. You invested. You'll get paid back, but it's for the greater societal good if that product's out there and more accessible.
All right, so we're going to get on to everybody's favorite topic, things related to EV space that are on fire. Okay, because humans love fire. Okay, so this is a Missouri battery recycling plant for lithium ion batteries. No, it didn't state specifically that they are car batteries, but I don't know. One of the things you and I are well aware of the fact that if a battery pack comes out of an EV, where's the first place it usually goes? It usually goes into energy storage, right?
Yeah, yeah, because it's no longer viable for that punch to power a car, but it's still 50 to 60% effective from what it was. It doesn't get
Yeah,
cycled as much.
and but what I'm getting at is, your first move wouldn't be to send your used EV batteries to a recycling center. It'd be
Recycle
sell it to somebody who's going to use it for energy storage. So for Tesla, when they replace batteries, they put them all into their own factories and they keep them as energy storage for their own solar farms.
it.
Have you looked at the window air conditioning units using solar panels? Nope, that's a pretty nifty idea because when you need the most air conditioning is when the sun's out.
Sunshine. Yeah,
Yeah, so I think that's an excellent.
good synergy.
Yes, yeah, it's an excellent use. I could see that. It's probably not been a big consideration here in the U.S., but I could see that overseas being a pretty big deal. I mean, I don't know what the power draw is typically of an air conditioner. What would that be, Mike? A couple of kilowatt? Well, he's talking a window.
Depending on the size, up to for power in a single family home, 6 kW, 5 kW on some of them. More high efficiency heat pumps are just a couple kW. Yeah, they're not bad. You
Yeah,
don't
so
need a whole
you
lot of
need a few
power.
panels. You need a few panels to
Yeah.
get much, but I guess you need probably two decent sized solar panels to power one 110 powered,
Uh
window
yeah,
AC.
if they're about 400 watts a panel, you need 3 or 4 of them or something like that. But on the same hand, it's if you're not trying to cover the whole load and just reduce it a little bit and make it easier and help the grid out with it, then that helps quite a bit too. Just taking a little off the top, it's not a bad thing.
No, but I think that's a pretty good idea there. Um, oh, here he's saying 4 to 6 panels. Yeah, that's so. Oh, when you're saying like a hybrid unit, you're talking like a split system. So we don't really use the split systems here in the United States, um, except maybe like in hotels. Hotels here sometimes use the split system, but otherwise, we're pretty much all central heat. Well, for the most part, it's central heat and air in the United States.
I would say it's a lot of incentives to start to go towards that, towards mini split heat pump units and things like that. And
You think
uh,
so?
yeah, it's starting. There's incentives towards them for, especially in places where, like Oregon is a good example, where traditionally they haven't had to have AC. but now they're starting to get heat waves and people are dying. They're really trying to incent those because, hey, your house wasn't built with central AC in mind. Here's a mini split system, and it's a cheaper and quicker implementable solution for them.
Yeah, I could see that up in the Pacific Northwest because a lot of places like in Seattle, our apartment complexes don't come standard with air conditioning. A lot of the older stuff, because the average temperature there used to be really low, even in the summertime, and now they're starting to need window AC. And I'm not going to get into why that may be, but you know, we have our reasoning and our theories as to what's going on there, but it's certainly
Yeah,
no
they had it
question
was
it's changed.
Portland had a heat wave in 2020 or 2021, and quite a few people died because they just had no AC. So as a state, they're really trying to push that and give people access to it and supplement the cost of those. And it's a quick way to do it to get some type of climate control in their
Yeah.
house.
So the facility that I was showing the picture of, it's a 225,000 square foot structure. It's in Fredericktown, Missouri. It's one of the world's largest lithium ion battery processing facilities. And officials have not said what might have caused the fire, but the company that operates the plant, Critical Mineral Recovery. They say on their website the facility contained one of the most sophisticated, automated, and remote supervised and controlled fire suppression systems in the world. So they felt it was adequate. What I suspect is they're probably getting used batteries that still have charges in them, right? So they're probably going to have to be more careful to only take batteries in that basically have had the charge removed.
Yeah, I have no idea. I mean,
I'm just saying.
Factories start on fire sometimes.
Well, really, the article, it really just gives possibilities. The batteries may have arrived at facilities damaged. They could still have stranded energy in the batteries.
Yeah, there you go. That's the charge. Yeah.
Yeah, and the recycling process involves shredding.
Ooh.
And some of the processes were shredded underwater to prevent that kind of thing from happening. Yeah. So, anyways,
you think that'd be part of their testing, though, right? Hey, we got this battery, and like make sure it's dead. That's
right.
Put the leads on it. Have a guy sits there and oop, okay, it's dead.
Yeah. So, what was really good about this? There was no injuries or deaths from this, but it was damage to facilities. I want to thank one of our listeners actually let me know about this thing because he was complaining to me about how unsafe EVs are, and so I thought I'd put a little cover that a little bit. He was talking about what a huge environmental disaster this was, acting like it was Chernobyl. And I thought that was quite interesting. You and I are both very positive on nuclear, and but I see this and it's like, really, that this is your axe to grind. My favorite though are people who come and watch the videos and tell us how dumb EVs are, and I especially like it though when they go on to like 6 or 7 videos
and do it.
And the same person, they keep doing it over and over again. They're watching lots of content and really getting to know us, and complaining about EVs and every one of them.
Anybody's welcome to watch. That's a great thing. Keep
watching. Yeah. Feel free, blast us on other social media so other people can come to our site and make fun of us too. We'll welcome the masses.
Everybody's welcome. Everybody's
welcome. You're all welcome to come and complain. Yeah, we don't care. Everybody's happy. It's good for the YouTube algorithm if you do that. Yeah.
You better be careful what you say. They might just do.
Yeah, I know.
Clicks aren't bad.
Yeah, I thought about offering one of the guys. He did it so much. He had about 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I was like, "Hey, do you think it would help you out if I went and I complained on all of yours too? I mean, I could do the same thing for you, and we can just constantly complain on each other's videos and tell each other what's wrong with them. Anyways, that was all I had for today. I'm sorry about the technical issues I had today. I'm still kind of confused as to what happened there, because that doesn't seem to make much sense to me. But anyways, folks, thanks for chiming in, and Mike and I will be back next week, and I'll be back with Bill tomorrow.